Okay, we are with Sergio Manzur. I'm so happy. I call Sergio the international man of mystery, and sometimes I think I confuse him with that. And I really mean it as a compliment because we're going to get into your story from Argentina to Canada to the Dominican Republic to maybe Alberta to then maybe Europe.
Who knows?
Who knows? So we're going to get into that. But I just want to, Sergio, I just want to read this to you. I briefly read it to you. I sent this to Nick. So in the U.S., they just came out today and released Q1 2024 GDP numbers. Growth slowed to 1.6%, which is less than half of the 3.4% Q4 2023 number. The reading is roughly 50% below Goldman Sachs's expectations. But it gets even more interesting because although growth is slowing, inflation is up. So core PCE price index soared from 2% to a staggering 3.7%. This crushed estimates, apparently, of 3.4%. So now we're living in a world where growth is slowing and inflation is not coming down.
Yeah.
When you hear that with your, just experience and background and, everything you've been through, Argentina, Canada, Dominican now, what comes to mind? Like when you hear that, what just comes to mind?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to my mind, and you said this many times, right, is stagflation. So we're basically, this is big news because if the US GDP, drops so much, it's huge. Everything that I've been hearing recently, people were still talking about the economy was still strong. Yeah, we have inflation still up, but the economy is still doing okay. Well, not today. So this is really, really big, right? So
I wonder if this
stagflation is something that, can affect countries. It has affected Argentina big time. It's really a very bad spot to be with.
So is that when you were growing up in Argentina as part of your adult life there, was it a stagflation type environment? Was it?
Yeah, it's not stagflation all the time, but we had, inflation that was usually high, sometimes even higher. Sometimes we got into, hyperinflation, crazy situations, and the economy rolls with that, right? So you have booms and busts in the economy all the time when you have those big swings, right? So, but overall, stagflation is always bad because people are losing their jobs, their incomes are not improving, but prices are still going up. So you cannot have something that is worse than stagflation, I would say.
Do you remember what the Argentinian government tried in that environment? Was it just more spending and money printing to try to stimulate things?
Yes, that's normally what happened in Argentina. Then we can talk about this new government that finally is trying to do things differently. But for many, many years, probably for 100 years, Argentina was addicted to that problem, right? Like just trying to print out of the problem, right? Just keep, deficits, more spending, trying to stimulate the economy in that way. And it never worked. They always create more debt and more problems that eventually turns out into, no more financing for the government. So then you have to resort to money printing, and then you get inflation, right?
Is that ultimately why, before you left Argentina, is that why ultimately you saw other people leave? They were just tired of the up and down of the economy? Like what was it? Yes,
it was mainly the economy. Then we got into other problems, then insecurity. But for the most part, in Argentina, the main problem was always the economy, right? And the lack of opportunity for young people as a result of the economy being in such a problem, right?
So families.
It wasn't like that forever. So even if Argentina has tried different socialist type or leftist type of strategy through different governments, even some military governments, right? Through many, many years. For the most part, it was the economy that really crushed people, and inflation especially, and that's why many people, had no opportunity and tried to, do better by going somewhere else, right? Which is what my wife did, why we emigrated to Canada in 2007.
And is it easy to leave a situation like that? Like, how do you get your money out? You come to a new country and then you just wire.
Nothing is easy in Argentina. Nothing is easy.
So you had to sell.
Yeah, you can still wire the money for sure. You normally don't go through the A lenders, the top banks, but there are other financial institutions that you can use to transfer money back and forth.
Why don't you go through the A lender, the A banks?
Because usually there's so much regulation from the government that really prevents you from doing something as simple as that, as doing what you want with your money.
So you go to a different lender that charges you a higher fee to get through some of those regulations?
Yes, like different type of financial institutions that operate kind of on the sidelines and where you can move your money in and out of the country. Right?
So was it just widely accepted that there's this, kind of gray market type other financial institution? Everybody knows about them. They just exist.
You have to think of a government that is trying to regulate its way through everything, right? More and more regulation, more distortion of the market. So restricting capital flows is definitely one of the hallmarks, right, of all the regulations that were in place, and that some are still in place, right? Even if, hopefully the new government is going to change that. But that was always the situation. So it was that's why you get a lot of people to save to have their savings in US dollars. Like basically the cash, right, that you can put under the mattress or in a safe in your house, and eventually take out of the country through these institutions, or even you take the cash when you're out, right? You try to open
stuff it in your
bank
suitcase
account somewhere else and put your money there, right? So yeah.
In that environment, you mentioned in that environment that safety changes as well. And I like, there's this one line from Jeff Booth and talking to him where he will say that money is superordinate to law. And that when the money breaks, everything else in society starts to break. Exactly. So find me a place that has a good, a poor currency, but is also very safe. Usually if the currency is broken, it's also not a safe place. So that you 100%. Found that in Argentina. 100%. Did that snowball, or was it just one day you noticed it, or could you see it happening steadily?
You see it happening steadily. Like nothing happened overnight. But
how did it change the way you lived? How did it change the way you live? You're just aware?
So, for example, when my wife and I, when we were kids, it was very safe to be in Buenos Aires, everywhere, every neighborhood, right? Like, there was no issues at all. It was the same for my parents. But then as the economy deteriorated, more and more, then you start to see, more crime on the street, and that's where the situation, got worse and worse. Not everywhere, but many neighborhoods, many places became relatively dangerous, I would say, where you can get, people breaking into your house, maybe when you're on the car, getting in or out, and they can get you there. So, it's
kind of the things that we're starting to see in Canada.
I know, I'm hearing about that with all the people that I'm talking, and it concerns me, right? It's definitely not the Canada that I experienced, 17 years ago when we moved here. I have seen constant but steady deterioration, especially the last 5 years or so, I would say. Yeah. That's where I started to feel that, and even as I was telling you earlier, right, I'm here now only for a few days before I go back to the Dominican Republic, but I'm talking to people, and the mood is very negative. Like, people are losing hope, right? Everyone is concerned about inflation, everyone is concerned about their finances and work, and it's
it's so weird because you could bang the table for years about like, this is coming. I feel like you and I have been talking about like, Canada, watch out. This is coming. This is coming. Prepare yourselves. And I feel like so much of the population just goes around kind of just in their daily lives, and they're busy. I get it. Yeah. But it's sad. In Argentina, people still pile into the restaurants and are having a good time, even in these hyperinflationary periods or inflationary periods. Is that because people are just not saving? Like, there's no point to save. So any money that comes in, you're hitting the cafes because you still want to socialize and have some fun.
Exactly.
100%. So you don't notice, like, it's because I noticed that also in Europe at different times. It's that there's just no point to save. So like, you get money, you still are earning some money, but the moment you get it, let's go out for dinner. There's just no savings happening.
Exactly. You don't have many options to save, right? Other than buying maybe US currency and, keeping that on a safe. That's for a lot of people, that's the only thing that you can do, right? And then when you see that prices are going up for everything, even if you have to buy something, you get a new car or an appliance, whatever, maybe you'll just get it now, because if you have to buy it in the future, it's going to be more expensive. So there is no point in saving when you don't have a good investment options, right? That are relatively safe.
That is the most
getting US dollars, right? That's
what you just said is so insightful, because when a government comes in and tries to do price controls in that kind of situation, what happens is people hoard. What they don't realize is people are smart. So they look around and say, oh, the government's going to cap the price of dairy products or steaks or burgers or meat or whatever. Well, when you see that happening, that's a signal to you that there's a problem there. Yes. So I'm going to go buy even more steaks and hoard those steaks because there's something going on. Did you see that in Argentina? Was it that kind of hoarding effect? Because I saw that with my relatives in Croatia. During hyperinflation, you begin to create hoarders, which disrupts the supply chain even more. So these price controls make things everything worse.
Exactly. So basically, so the government usually outreaches and start putting regulations on top of regulation on top of regulation, because the new regulation is supposed to fix the problem,
old regulation,
but they make it worse and worse. So you have many of these socialist kind of governments that are attempting to control the economy and to control everyone's lives, right? So for example, they try price controls. Of course, price controls don't work, because you kill the quality of the products, you get no stock situations, whatever. So then they put on top other regulations so that you are forced to have something to sell, right? And then people don't always respond in a negative way, and always more suspicious and try to get out of the system and save themselves, right?
To me, when I saw a little bit of that through my life, again, through my family in Croatia, it was like the gray market or the black market or whatever we're calling it. That was the real economy.
Yes.
That was like the real economy. It was like, hey, okay, look, here's what the government's telling you, and here's what prices are. But you know what? Look, between me and you, if you want these eggs, or if you want this pork, or if you want this steak, here's what we can do. And you do it on the side to try to avoid paying all the freaking taxes. And maybe, hopefully, you have something that you can give that person in exchange for what you want, whether it be US dollars or just straight up barter. Like, hey, I know my cousin can do plumbing. I will get my cousin to do some plumbing for you. You do this, and you start making these weird deals on the side to get stuff done. And I don't think anyone's prepared for that, but that's what happens.
Exactly. I mean, there is a market, and when the government starts distorting the market is going to find its way. People are going to find their way anyway, right? And if it's in the underground economy, so that's what it's going to be. So,
Sergio, you are so, what the crazy part about your particular story is? You're so well, maybe nobody feels prepared, but you're so well prepared in the context you have for what you see happening in the world right now, which probably helps you, because I think we were just talking about how you're still finding your way and what you want to do next. But I feel like the context that you have does give you an advantage, because a lot of people are going to be 10 years from today, won't have seen what's happening, and they're going to wake up. My favorite example of this is a lot of people in academia who are voting for larger deficits. They're like, hey, deficits don't matter. I just saw this the other day on Twitter. Somebody was saying, from academia that has a huge following on Canadian Twitter, saying, hey, deficits don't matter. I don't know why everyone's focused on this. That's not the problem. And I'm like, you know what? I think this person's in their 30s. 30 years from now, you're going to be retired broke.
Yep.
And you will not know why, because you were preaching that deficits don't matter. It's going to destroy your income. It's going to destroy your purchasing power.
Yeah.
And you are going to be ruining the day that you said deficits don't matter. You just don't see it yet. And it's going to be and the reason I know this, I was just having a conversation with a good friend out in the UK who we met, who moved to the UK for work. His family was in Zimbabwe. His family was in Zimbabwe. They were kind of chased out of Zimbabwe. The old story, hyperinflation, family purchasing power. So they moved to South Africa. When they moved to South Africa, anything that they had that was property that was less than 5 years old, the government in Zimbabwe kept. So as they moved, if they had a table, like a kitchen table, that was less than 5 years old, they had to give it to the government. Chairs, bed frame, government. So when they left to South Africa, and they got to South Africa, they got in a place that they were able to afford with no furniture, sleeping on the floor. You know, and I'm like, the government wouldn't even let them out of the country with any, never mind currency, wouldn't let them out with that kind of thing. But the interesting part to me is this person has an aunt, and the aunt in Zimbabwe was an academic who was voting for and encouraging people to, you know, run deficits and print money and support all these social programs, and everybody needs assistance. And like, she was championing this.
Yes.
Country gets destroyed. She gets out to the UK. She lives in the UK in public housing right now and basically broke.
Oh, that's so sad.
Sad. She was voting for a system that would then go on to abuse her.
Yeah.
And she didn't see it.
Yeah.
To me, that is the sad part. And when Jeff Booth spoke at our last event, you weren't here. He spoke at an event in the fall.
I watched that.
Oh, did you?
The recording.
Wasn't that a great talk?
It was awesome.
That was a great talk.
It was awesome.
If you haven't watched that, go to our YouTube channel, Rockstar Inner Circle. Go there now. Stop this.
Yeah.
Go there now and listen to the Jeff Booth
I
talk.
recommend it for sure. Yeah.
It's got like 40,000 views. It's Jeff Booth is in the name of the title. Yeah, go to youtube.com/Rockstar Inner Circle. I never kind of pitch our stuff like that. Go and watch that talk. But Jeff said something very interesting from the stage. He said, everyone in this room, you will vote for the very thing that will bring us all down.
Yeah.
Because you're going to vote for things like lower interest rates. And those are the things that are going to make deficits higher, debasement increase, your purchasing power decrease.
Yeah. The way that I see this, Tom, is that, you know, some people, like, you are a good example, right? Someone that is studying economy and is really interested and is learning and forming an educated opinion. But the reality is that the vast majority of the population, there's nothing wrong. They are just focused on other stuff. So they are not experts on the economy. Hopefully they don't need to be. If you live in a place like Argentina, of course, you have to become just to survive. But if not, you don't really need. So you're counting on politicians and the media that basically educate you. And they design their policies and they pitch those policies and they package that in a way that you are basically being fooled by all these socialist type of policies. So that's why people say, deficits are not bad, or a little bit inflation is not that bad, and more social programs, that's what we need. And to me, it's a collusion with the politicians, mainly leftist politicians that actually want to continue pitching that agenda.
Because
Why?
they benefit from it.
Exactly, because they just want to continue holding power, and they see that the best that I can do is that, give money to everyone and try to keep everyone happy so that I can stay in power. And they are just kicking the can, and it's going to be a problem for the next generations. The politicians right now don't care about that. They just care about the next few years, how do they remain in power and collect their money, and the rest is not their problem.
It's why I tell anyone, and if you're listening to this and you have some friends, you can please start sharing the message that politics doesn't really matter until the central banking system that we all operate under changes. Politics are just going to go to the central banks and say, politicians will just go to the central banks and say, give us more money, and the central banks will oblige that if nobody's going to buy the debt of the country, the central banks will step in and buy the debt, debase the purchasing power of all of us. And this just continues over and over until the central banking system is fixed, corrected, by ultimately being eliminated. We're just going to have this continue over and over. And I guess the good news is, listen, you got into real estate for a reason. And, I know I talk now also about Bitcoin, and I've been trying to beat that drum for like 4 years, because to me, the way the US dollar was to the Argentinians, Bitcoin is to all of us. Bitcoin is the new US dollar, and it's universal. And I know that is difficult for someone listening to this to understand, but maybe if you come from a finance background, this will change your mind, that the 4-year compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin from January 2020 to January 2024, with all the ups and downs of it over that 4-year period, the 4-year compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin over those 4 years is 46% compounded annually. That's an absolute, when I looked at that number for the first time, I almost didn't believe it. So the reason that that's interesting is, again, Just like the US dollar was the store of value exactly to the Argentinians, we now thankfully have this thing. And I think it's enough, it's long enough that we can stop dismissing it and have some honest conversations about this thing. Like it's beyond the point like, oh my gosh, it's,
because it's basically going back to real money, to private money, to money that can be, that you can own, that is scarce, that they're not going to be debasing by creating more and more and more, right? Because that's the job of the central banks. At the end, it's printing money, creating more debt and printing money. So I'm very excited. So the new president.
Yeah, did he get rid of the central bank? No, he didn't. Did he?
No, he hasn't yet.
Okay.
But that's his goal. He wants to get to that point when he gets rid of the central bank, because he explicitly says that, the central bank is just theft. They're just stealing your wealth. He said
this is Javier
Milei.
Milei.
Yeah, so I'm very hopeful because, he's probably one of the very few politicians in the world that is talking in those
His
terms.
presidential campaign was amazing to listen to. When he had that chainsaw going through downtown Buenos Aires or wherever he was going down, saying that he was going to cut everything.
Yeah, and he's doing it. If you see the results that he has obtained in only 3-4 months, it's absolutely amazing.
Did you see all those bankers protesting against it? There was a bunch of bankers that were protesting against it.
A lot of people still protest, right? And many people are going to continue to protest. A lot of people because, it's in their interest that he fails so that they can continue with the status quo, especially most of the politicians still in Argentina, right? But then you have also part of the population that is completely fooled and dominated by that more socialist message, right? That, the deficits and just, printing money and giving more money to everyone is how we're going to solve problems. No, that's what actually got us into this problem. And I think Argentina really hit rock bottom. And that's probably then you have a chance of a president like Milei, who proclaims himself to be a libertarian, came to power, which is right now I think the very first libertarian president or prime minister all around the world. Like, we are witnessing something that is very, very interesting. I don't know how it's going to go, but if it goes well,
we're all going to Argentina. Sergio, you're going back to Argentina, and I'm coming with you. My family's coming with you. We're all going to Argentina. I like steak. Yeah. I heard there's good steaks. I'm going.
Food is amazing. People are amazing. Yeah, no.
Beaches, weather. I don't know. Seems like the perfect place.
Yeah, it's.
It'll be interesting to see what he does with the central bank. To operate in the West. I don't think he's going to be able to eliminate it. Those are powers I fear that are bigger than Argentina, but he might be able to contain it.
Yeah, if Argentina does really well under all these policies, it's going to be an outstanding example of what you should do instead of continue to pile on deficits and printing more money. So it's going to be not just talk, but okay, now you have a case that was an example of everything gone bad. Now, hopefully it can be an example of, okay, if you do these things, it works.
Does he have enough power in Argentina? And I don't understand the government structure there, but does he have enough power to get things done?
Right now, it's very interesting, actually, the situation, because most of his power right now resides on about 60% of the... Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
About 60% of the population that still supports him, which is about the same number of people that voted him to start with. But if you look at the Congress and the Senate, he doesn't have a majority, not even close. And many of those politicians are trying to bring him down, that they really want him to fail and they wouldn't vote anything for him, right? So he's still managing to get a lot done.
Impressive.
Fortunately. And what he wants is that, okay, next year when we have another election and the composition of the Senate and the Congress changes, it will be a more favorable environment if a lot of people, continue to vote for him and his party. And then he's going to have even more power to change even faster, right? But what he has done in just a few months, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's giving you hope, eh?
Yes, I am hopeful. We still have to wait.
Do you still have a lot of friends in Argentina?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so are they hopeful?
I have my sister living there.
Okay, so what are they saying? Are they on board or they
Many people really see it and are hopeful, and many people think it's a complete disaster, right? And that we're going down the drain. So what I think that we need to do is, to keep this going for a while longer until you start to see results, and then the results will speak for themselves. It's not just worse, but it's going to be actual results. Okay, you do this, you start to get positive results. He's crashing inflation very, very, very.
You know what that does to attract quality people to your country? If they're open to immigration, think of somebody like my brother Nick. If he wants to start another business and he's an entrepreneur that's capable of starting businesses, he would look at a place with a tax structure that might be encouraging to entrepreneurs and say, Argentina, you look interesting. I'm going to bring in some capital. So now there's no capital coming out of Argentina. Now someone like my brother Nick is coming in with capital, going to create jobs, invest in the country, buy property, spend money at the restaurants. And when you do that at scale, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, it has the potential to change things rather rapidly. So there needs to be this tipping point. You're right, like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. But I don't think it would take that long for some people to look at that country with everything it has to offer and say, this is the environment I want to grow some roots and build a network.
Yep.
As opposed to a country right now like Canada that seems to be doing everything opposed to that. Like, we will make your life, capital gains increases will happen.
More controls, more hands out.
Yeah, you see it. You just see it. So so your family, you got the Dominican Republic experience so far. It seems like you guys are really settled in and it's going nicely.
Yeah, it's going
the sun,
really
I can
nice.
tell you have some sun. So yeah, apparently you've been living
it's
it.
just because you get to that point that it's like a permanent tan, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to use any sunscreen anymore. Yeah. You're done. You're protected.
By the end of the summer, that's where I get to in Croatia that I don't need, because I'm obviously so pale that I need sunscreen. But by the end, it's weird. Your body just seems to adapt. You don't need it anymore, right? You just go out and you're good. So you're there. So what... The kids are settled into the schools and stuff.
Yeah.
But your next move may be coming back up to, you still have property in Canada.
Yep.
And you might come back up to Alberta. Is Alberta?
Yes, we don't have a principal residence anymore in Canada. We sold that property, but we have rentals here in Ontario and also in Alberta. So next August, we're planning to come back to Canada, but we're going to move straight to Calgary.
You're going to move to Calgary, and that's for the children's upbringing. That's the place.
It is mainly for the family. It's mainly for the children. This has been an amazing experience for them. We're really loving it over there. But we believe that it's going to be best for the boys to finish high school in Canada in terms of setting themselves up for whatever they want to do next, right? In a large city where they have more options and potentially an easy entry into the university system, right?
Got it.
So
because it could be a little trickier from Dominican Republic, perhaps a little harder to get in.
Yeah, people still do it. But for example, I have two boys. My older one, he's very intellectual. He wants to go to a good university. And actually in Calgary, we're able to send him to a really good public high school that has a very recognized IB program, International Baccalaureate program. So that could set him up to study anywhere in the world. He's thinking of going to university in Europe. Okay, that would be a much better platform for him to be able to do that. So if
you're going to be in and out again. You're going to be in and out again.
I think so. Yeah, actually, in hindsight, or based on everything that we experienced, that we learned, I would say, hey, if it were for my wife and I, we would probably stay there as a base and travel as much as we could. That would be kind of like the perfect setup, right? Because if you're there and you live there all year long, you don't have many options. You start to crave or feel a little bit of the island syndrome, and you
do you? Okay.
To travel.
Okay.
All these things that we didn't know, right? We had to experience and once we were there. So if it were just my wife and I, we would probably stay there. So maybe when the kids are adults, maybe we'll go back. We'll see. Or we go somewhere else.
And then you traveled through Spain. Why did you guys go to just liked Spain? Is that one of the places?
So last year, it was great because not only we were living in the Dominican, but we also had a chance to travel a lot. We went to Argentina. We went to Europe. We traveled 48,000 kilometers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Just on 2023, right? Which is really something that a goal that we had for our family, and it was really.
Where did you go in Spain?
Yeah. So we went to many places, but we stayed primarily in Madrid, and around Madrid, just because I have a lot of friends there, and I also have my brother-in-law living.
Oh, no
there.
way.
Yeah.
I've never been to Madrid. I've only been to Barcelona and the outskirts of Barcelona. Never Madrid. Nice.
Had a great time. The kids love it. It was summer, right? So the weather was amazing.
Lifestyle, everybody.
The lifestyle is just
more social.
Amazing.
Yeah.
People live at a different pace. The way that they enjoy life, and they are not as worried about their finances as I feel we are here in Ontario.
Maybe they just have hundreds of years of being used to chaos in Europe, that like everything's just easy to handle, you know?
Yeah. But it's definitely a place that we have on our list,
you liked
to
it
live
that
in the
much.
future. Right?
You liked it that much.
We absolutely.
And Madrid specifically, because you're not on water in Madrid, no?
No, but it's a beautiful city.
Really?
Yeah, it has such an intense social life.
So the cafes, the restaurants, the food quality is top notch.
Top notch.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
The people are so friendly, especially during summertime. I mean, you can be out. People have dinner really late.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with that. That's how I grew up.
Yeah.
So you go, 8, 9 p.m. for dinner. You have dinner in the street. People stay in the bars and restaurants until midnight.
It's nice.
Almost every day, not just weekends, right?
Yeah.
So, and people are very
living.
open and friendly.
Social.
It's just so good.
I love Europe. No, I just love it. I was telling my friends just the other day that when I'm over there in Croatia, and I'm born here, and I'm only half Croatian, my mother's Scottish, but I guess I'm 100% European, you could say. I don't know.
Yeah.
When I'm over there, I just feel at home.
Yes.
I just feel at home. I feel at peace.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, like I'm meant to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like an unspoken feeling, It's just, I feel like, wow.
We absolutely loved it, so maybe that's.
And you have Italian descent somewhere in your family? Or you do.
So we're getting Italians.
All those Italians that went over to Argentina.
Yeah.
Tons of Italians.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so.
And do you go into Italy ever or no?
I haven't been there for the last 20 years or so.
Oh God, we're going back to Florence this summer.
Oh, Florence is beautiful.
You could go sit there in the cafes and people. It's funny though. Carol's
I like it more than Rome or Venice.
Oh yeah. Florence is like listen. I'm a student of monetary policy and money. So the Medici family that brought the Europe out of the Dark Ages with the florin is from there, and you could there's so much history and artwork, and I'm not even a big museum person, but when you're there, to see the sculptures that was created and the art that was created, and you just can't. It's something like you stand there in awe at some of this stuff, and it's just everywhere.
It's everywhere in Europe, right?
Yeah. Oh, and my Carol's cousin has a place just right on the edge of Florence there, and you go out and we have dinner on a little patio table, and you're overlooking these Tuscan hills and the sunset, and Andrea Bocelli's playing in the background, and you're just like, what? This is what you guys do all the time? Like, this is like a special thing for us. Like, this is Tuesday? This is something just happening right now, and it's just so nice. I love
their pace, right? It seems that people are more conscious about, how do I enjoy life? And they don't worry as much about work, right, as we normally do here.
Part of that, I think,
live a more balanced life, a healthier life.
Part of that, I think, comes from, not all of it, but part of it comes from some of them have family history there that's so long, they have some property that they don't necessarily have to pay rent for. Tons do. Tons still do. They have to pay rent, and they're trying to, find a place to live. But some of them have a family home that they can just use. And when you don't have the burden. Can you imagine, Sergio, not having the burden for your whole adult life of paying off a mortgage, a place to live? How much income do you need then to just live? Especially if you're in a place like Madrid or Florence. It might be quote unquote expensive for the tourist to pop into there. But if your place of living is kind of covered because, through 3 or 4 generations, you have a place to live. Whatever income you're bringing in, what do you need?
Yeah, no, for sure. And actually, I was surprised that I really found Spain very affordable. much more than what I expected. Like cheaper than Canada, cheaper
So
than
like
US. Everything. I can tell you for 2,000 euros. I'm talking about a top city like Madrid.
Yeah.
Right? Spain overall and Madrid is cheaper than everywhere else in Europe, I would say, or at least compared to other places like the UK, Italy, or France. I found it cheaper. But for 2,000 euros a month, you can rent a really nice place.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like a flat kind of like apartment right in Madrid.
A 3-bedroom apartment.
I mean, like in one of those 4-story buildings, like a kind of
that have amenities in a nice area.
Nice restaurant on the main
that
floor.
For 1,800 to 2,000 euros a month. You pay 2,500 euros, you can get a beautiful place. So, yeah. People don't make a lot of money in Spain. I think the average salary is something like 1,400 euros. So it's probably, below other places in Europe.
I need you to come closer to the mic. Sorry, Sergio,
yeah.
I know.
So
I'm being a pain. Sorry, you were getting comfortable.
No,
you were living life. You were living life. You sat down.
You and I forgot. So at the end, I found it quite affordable.
Wow.
Quite affordable.
So you guys might end up in Spain. Who knows?
Yeah, could be. So my older son, wants to study in Europe, and Spain could be an option when he starts university. My little one, he doesn't want to go to university. I don't know, but he's still 4 years away, so everything can change, right? He's only 14.
And 4 years in today's world is like a lifetime. Who knows what everything's going to look like in 4 years. Wow, this is a fun adventure for you guys. So so next August, you might pop back into Canada for a little bit, and then who knows where you go from there.
At the end, we want to continue in this path and hopefully have the freedom to live whatever we want, right?
I think everything that you're going through now, you have the freedom. You're just, you know so much now. You've seen so much. Is it important now to get some roots somewhere to you? Like, do you and your wife need to decide, or no, that's not so important? Like, do you want to have a home base for like 15 years?
I'm not sure. Right now, we're thinking of doing that in Calgary, especially for the kids, right? When the kids become adults and they are on their own, I don't know. Maybe we'll follow them wherever they decide to go. I don't know. Like really, living a more nomad and minimalistic life where we spend, several months in different places, whatever. I'm attracted to something like that, where you can really, create your income or manage your business remotely. That's what. Even in the Dominican Republic, I found a lot of foreigners that are living there, expats on the north coast. That's what they do, right? I mean, they can live there, they can have their family there. Maybe they come once a month to Toronto or anywhere, but for the most part, they manage their investments and they manage their businesses remotely. So it's very, very interesting. That's really something that was much better than what we expected. That we found there an expat community that is growing, and it's amazing. It's not just retirees as it used to be, and you still have a lot of retirees and more retirees that are coming for sure. But now you have younger families that needs to put their kids through school. So where we live, there are actually nearby 3 private schools, all with a U.S. accredited program, English education. So great schools, right? They're private, and of course they don't cost as much as a private school in the U.S. or Canada, probably a third of what we would pay here. So you have families that live there. Maybe the dad, comes. I know some people that, maybe the dad will come to Toronto maybe 5 days a month, and then they work remotely from there. Someone that has a regular job, right? But then you have people that, run their own businesses. We know a couple that have a business in Halifax, and occasionally they travel, but they do everything remotely, even managing their employees in Canada. So it's a very interesting environment. We met very interesting people, many Canadians, Americans, and lots of Europeans. There you wouldn't believe how many people from Russia, Ukraine, Italy, Poland. Yeah, it's a very.
What were the Italians saying? Why were they there? They didn't like what they saw in Italy, perhaps.
Yes, you have a lot of people that are more like renegades that want to run away from their countries. But now you really have the typical digital nomad. You have the retirees. You have many retirees or many people that maybe they don't want to live there the full year, but they are there for the whole winter, right? Or at least 4 months, and then they come back here. So you have a little bit of everything. Europeans, again, you have people, in the school that my kids go, there are a lot of young kids, right? And from European families. People from Israel, Italy, Germany, Poland, many people. And as I said, some are mad with what's happening over there, but some are just saying, okay, we're going to give it a try and we'll see. And maybe then they move somewhere else as long as they can, they have secured their income that is very likely coming from outside the Dominican Republic, and they get enough money to maintain that lifestyle, and they have the freedom to move to different places. It's amazing. It's very interesting.
What would it take for you to move back to Argentina? Is there like a metric, like something you would see, a safety metric, a financial metric? Is there something, or just a combination of communication from your friends that said, hey, Sergio, it's good, come back?
Yeah, it would be talking to people, but also I would like to see that the economy really turns around and we start to see growth and inflation, goes back to something manageable, right? And now I'm seeing lots of very positive trends, but it's still too soon to tell. I would say I would give at least 3-4 more months, maybe until the end of the year, to see if many of these structural changes really take hold, and most people start to see that, okay, this is the way to go, and let's support this government. If that happens, I think there's going to be an economic miracle in Argentina. I think it's going to be one of the best places to invest, for sure.
What's one of the things that you've seen happen that you like? Like, is there something specific that you've seen so far that you're like, I'm glad that's happening?
Yeah. A good example, real estate related. So in Argentina, there was some renters law that was terrible. And basically, what that created is that a lot of people that have a second property, they would prefer not to offer it for rent. Because you get someone, it's impossible to get the tenants out, you are capped on your rent increases, etc. So one of the things that the new president did, by decree, they abolished that law and many other laws and regulations that basically gave people the freedom to agree on whatever they want to agree. So
a free economy. A free economy.
Sergio,
so how dare you? How dare you say that?
If you look at the last 4 months, what actually happened is now you have double the offer of properties for rent. The rents actually came down a little bit.
Oh my God, shocking.
So you can plan, you can agree on whatever. Even it doesn't have to be on local currency. You can agree on rent on Bitcoin, US dollar, whatever.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
You can write the lease agreement in whatever you want.
Yes. So there was one that happened in Bitcoin. Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing. So I think we need to wait a little bit, but then, because the economy is in such a shithole right now, there is so much long-hanging fruit that it's probably going to be one of the best places to invest for the next.
Yeah, when you're coming from a place of so low,
exactly,
the growth can be so great.
The only way is up, right? You have a lot of idle capacity in the economy, a lot of capital that flee the country, even from Argentinians, right? That now is going to come back.
When you get the intellectual capital and the monetary capital both coming back, poof.
Yeah. And the government now has a fiscal superávit.
What's that?
So no more deficit.
Okay, got it. Yeah. I saw him talking about it.
No more deficit now for 3 months in a row. And he pledged that, okay, we're not going to have a deficit anymore. And as the economy starts to grow and I get more tax revenue, I'm going to lower taxes. And I think he's really going to do it. And that is going to boost the economy significantly. But we'll still have to wait and see. Actually, the people that have invested in Argentina from November until now, they have done really well. anyone that invested in local stocks are up dramatically. Debt tripled. So anyone that invested on Argentinian debt, where it was in November, I think 18 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
Now it's 60 cents on the dollar. So more than triple their triple gains in just a few months. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll have to wait a little bit, but I'm very hopeful.
You have this
because
wild...
for decades everything has been going downhill, and I was so hopeless. I came to Canada. I didn't even wanted to read the news about.
So what was so hopeless?
I was just like I'm done with that crap.
Okay, and we talked about it, but it just helped me out. What was so hopeless again? It was just that like you couldn't get ahead financially. Yeah. The safety deteriorated in the communities. Yeah. So are those the two principal things?
Those were the two main, I would say. Yeah.
So you just are like, well, what am I doing here? Because I'm working, but I can't save any money. I can't get ahead. Just like you're running on a treadmill, working, but you're not getting anywhere.
You struggle to save, then you struggle to protect those savings, right? You don't have many options other than...
You become an economist out of a necessity. You learn about currencies and currency exchanges.
Yeah.
So then you come to Canada. So then when you're here now, like, do you literally just look around and call home and talk to your wife and say, yeah, it's happening in Canada? Like, the people there don't see it, but it's happening?
Yeah, I see it clearly. We are moving in the wrong direction for sure. I mean, we are still really, really far from where Argentina is right now, for sure. But the trends are very, very concerning, I would say.
So do you think a change in the leadership of this country can correct course?
I think it may, but I think the change may need to come from an outsider, a true outsider, not another politician. I mean, we probably agree that Poilievre is going to be a much better option than Trudeau, and hopefully we can get him tomorrow, and let's see what happens. But I think there's structural changes that are required. I mean, we are gearing towards a $40 billion deficit. That is absolutely incredible. So how do you fix that? You have to control the expenses, which will mean that shutting down some government institutions or shedding people from the government and stop doing crazy crap and giving money away, helicopter money to everyone, right? So can someone that comes from the system, that is a politician, really do that?
No.
Or like in Argentina, you need a true outsider, someone that has never been a politician, that got into politics to basically say, okay, this needs to change. Hey, regular people, come support me. I'm going to spearhead this, but I'm going to need your support. That's probably what's needed maybe in Canada or anywhere else, right? So the politicians that got us to where we are right now are not going to get us out. They are part of the problem. They are not part of the solution, unfortunately.
How did Javier get into power? That's just like a minor miracle that he won in Argentina. You must have been jumping up and down and celebrating. Holy shit.
Yes. But in part, someone that preaching all these more libertarian, philosophies and talking about, cutting the deficit and adjusting the economy, etc., only had a chance because things were so bad that people say, hey, nothing of this works so far. We need to change. We need something different. So, but maybe in places like Canada, until we don't get into that situation, people are not going to be courageous enough to say, okay, let's try something.
Correct.
Like that.
They won't. Yeah,
they won't.
Because it requires suffering. You're basically telling the population with nicer words than suffering that, hey, you're going to have to suffer.
Did.
Yeah, he did.
And he got.
Do you remember that on the whiteboard when he had all those different government divisions and he said canceled or destroyed or and he started ripping them off the board? I was cheering. I'm get rid of them all. What are we doing?
Yeah, those videos are circling around the world. I mean, he's saying like afuera, which is like out.
Afuera. I love it. Listen, democracy is so flawed in that, like, we put new laws and regulations into power in a democracy with no expiration date. Like, we just need an expiration date because we put all these regulations in about all different rules. They should just have an automatic expiration date, and that you vote on them again at that expiration date. And if it doesn't make sense, at least there's the chance that they die. But with a democracy where the more regulations and more regulations, you just crush the population, you crush the entrepreneurial spirit. And then when you put in more, people don't even understand why we have certain sectors of the government anymore. We have all these employees in government agencies where nobody knows what they do, but we still pay for them. And their salaries go up. And the government never decreases in size. I don't know if you've seen the charts about the amount of government employees that have been hired in this country over the last 4 years.
Yeah,
it's like straight up. We just keep adding government employees.
Yeah.
But there's never an end to it. So the government just naturally crushes the population for the amount of fiscal that it needs to operate.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
It's so sad.
In Argentina, it was similar. You would see every stat that you would see the deficit growing, the size of the government growing, government employees growing.
Oh, you did see that?
Yeah.
Obviously you did. Yeah.
So, okay,
Enough.
I think there is a balance, right? I mean, the more state you have, the more it crashes the economy. Because at the end, people don't realize that, okay, you are paying for that government. You may not think that you're paying, but you are. Because if you have inflation, that's how you're paying for it. I mean, the worst tax is really the inflation. But people don't see that, okay, that is really like a tax because it's taking me purchasing power away from me. People don't see it like that. But they will eventually. Unfortunately.
I like how you laugh at the end of that. So during that time in Argentina, what did people do to try to protect their purchasing power? They bought US dollars.
Yes.
Did some people turn to the property laws? Look like they went crazy, but for a period of time, people went into real estate, I guess?
Yes. I mean, if you bought
all the
property,
regular things.
If you bought assets, you would still do okay.
Yeah.
Even if, property there, because of the big swings in the economy, it can go up and down. But at the end, if you have inflation and if you control assets, you are going to be okay. It's a matter of, surviving those ups and downs. But if you own assets, you're going to be okay, right? It's an asset. You have either, gold or U.S. currency, which is, of course, more stable than the local currency over there, or you have, real estate. That's how you survive. That's the only way, really.
I remember when I saw Croatia, a small little country, go through its hyperinflationary moment. It was really interesting to observe. If you reflect on that period, it's that people who, it also had a war. So, I mean, just crazy. But the middle class is the one that got destroyed because those who owned assets, even after the war, maybe legitimately or illegitimately, some assets were redistributed back to the rich. Right. So okay, here's a hotel in a resort town for you. So you're going to be okay because you have this asset. Right. And the poor had nothing to lose. If you're living in a village somewhere and you have a couple cows and pigs and chickens and stuff, well, the hyperinflationary moment really didn't affect you. You still have the cows and the chickens, like you're just living hand to mouth kind of. But the people in the middle who had a little bit of savings but not assets just get wiped out.
Exactly.
Like they just get cleaned out and they don't see it. There's a moment where one of my aunts said when the new currency came out, she said she went to the bank and they had a little plexiglass box at the bank and she just stuffed in her old currency. You don't even count it.
No.
You just stuff it in, close the box. And once the box was full, then she got a little bit of the new currency that was like a meaningless amount.
Yeah.
But like that was the exchange. You just stuffed the currency into a little box. Can you believe that? That's what she told me at the bank. I mean, I didn't see that with my own eyes, but my aunt told me this, so I have to believe it. Wild, no? And I think that's just in every society or every nation state that those with assets ultimately survive to different degrees.
Yeah.
And the poor, they're not really affected because
unfortunately, the poor are normally poor and they will stay poor because that's how they...
Yeah, and I'm not trying to justify them being poor.
And
but it's the middle class that has... And some of them, I think, are going to think they're going to be protected in the stock market. And my answer to the stock market is, if your stock, there's a couple things to consider there. If your stocks don't go up in value higher than the rate of debasement...
Yeah.
When you cash out that stock, you're not getting the share of ownership and you have an asset. You're cashing that out to the local currency. So if the local currency is the Canadian dollar and the Canadian dollar debased faster than the growth of your stock.
Yep.
So for example, you might have a stock right now that you think is doing really well, growing, I don't know, it's like 5% compounded a year or something. But if the debasement's 15%,
exactly.
when you cash that stock out, you're still losing. 100%. And then if you're losing and you're somehow taxed on the capital gains of that, on top of it, then there's management fees if you're using financial advisors. It's very frustrating because for the middle class in that moment, they've done all the right things. They got the index fund, they got a financial advisor to help them out. But they get chopped at every point.
Exactly. I mean, the only way is to really beat the monetary debasement. That's the only way, right? So if the government, debases the money by printing more money and creating more money out of thin air, and you cannot meet or beat that growth in the monetary base, then you're falling behind.
Listen to this. That's such a good. This.
I know you talk about.
No, I know this point gets me crazy. I know it does, but listen to this. So the Federal Reserve, the asset base of the Federal Reserve has grown since 2008, the moment where capitalism, I feel, really died, 2008, has grown 14%, the Federal Reserve's asset base. The monetary base that supports grew 13% compounded annually since 2008, 13%. So in my mind...
That's a hurdle rate.
That's the hurdle rate. And I would round it up to 15% just because I'm like, let's be safe. It's actually 15%. If you have a $60,000 salary and you grow that 15% compounded annually, after 20 years, that salary needs to be, it's like 980,000 or 960,000, something in the 900,000s.
Yes.
So after 20 years, your $60,000 salary must be over $900,000 a year just for you to keep pace with the loss of purchasing power via debasement that you don't see.
Exactly. It's exactly like that. I mean, if that's the number, 13% compounding annual growth rate, that is a huge number. Huge. I think that with 7% rate, prices double in 10 years. So 13, I don't know, but it's probably like 4 or 5 years. So that means that, whatever money you have, if you don't find a way to grow it at that hurdle rate, as you call it 13, 15%, etc., you're falling behind. So
that's the thing that's shocking to me.
Yeah, but people don't, most people don't see that, right?
The beautiful part is if you can do that, and then you have the worldview that you have, Sergio, life is good. Because you're staying ahead of the debasement. You can be in the Dominican. I know you can be in Spain. And if you can beat that rate, and I know leveraged real estate.
And now it's a challenge, especially what's happening with real estate here.
Challenge.
I'm not beating that rate. That's what concerns me the most, right? Because, but I know that I have to, right? Just to stay whole, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see now with interest rates what happens, because I'm sneakily suspicious on this latest GDP number. I'm like, for the last 8 quarters, whatever it is, it's been growth, and meeting expectations. And now it's still growth, but it's half of expectations or whatever it was, and it's just in time to perhaps lower rates 6 months before a U.S. election. So this is where my conspiracy hat goes on. I'm like, it's very convenient that now they can say, well, inflation's not down. Sergio, inflation's not down, but what do you want us to do? The economy's faltering. We can't have the economy falter for your own financial benefit. We need to take care of you. So we're going to have to cut interest rates here. What else do you want us to do?
100%. So basically, the thing that the mandate right now for central banks is to cap interest rate. So that's the number one priority, and that's what they're doing. As soon as the economy gets into real trouble and the priority shifts from controlling inflation to saving the economy, okay, now it's fair game. Now do what you have to do. What can I do? Stimulate the economy by, decreasing rates. They will do it. It's just a matter of time. I'm sure.
I feel like this is the setup. We were looking at, we did this economic update recently where the U.S. annualized interest on their debt is $1.1 trillion. And if rates don't change by December, it goes from $1.1 trillion in annualized interest payments to $1.6 trillion.
Yeah. No,
later this year.
Crazy. I know we talk about this many times, right? But I think we are witnessing the destruction of the system, the monetary system.
Now we're in it.
But it's a matter of, okay, maybe if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would say, maybe it's going to last for a couple more years. 10 years later, it's still going. Is it going to go for another 10 years, 5,
yes,
or 3 months? I don't know, but the end is there. I mean, it's unavoidable. It's a matter of how and when. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it.
And I feel like in the West, in countries like Canada, you'll just have more coercion come into place where it will be like, hey, listen, I don't know if there's going to be a central bank digital currency, but there'll be something, UBI, Universal Basic Income, that is like, hey, we have to do this. And it's going to be a great re-election platform.
Yes.
And, if you don't use your central bank digital currency, then, you're not part of the system and you can't get the benefits. You can't get your child support benefits and you can't get this and you can't get that. So the coercion will come in with the wording that it's for your own good.
Exactly.
But it will be, for the worst reasons possible.
Exactly. For the politicians to maintain the status quo, right? And to keep this game going, even if the system needs to change. But nobody wants to pull the trigger, right? And many people actually have more of an incentive of keeping it going.
Yeah.
Keeping it going with everything that they can throw at it until eventually, most people realize that, okay, this doesn't work and there is no more credibility and something changes dramatically and probably very fast, but I don't know how or
I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But I do know from watching, reading history, again, seeing some of my own family members in Croatia, it can happen in an instant.
Yes.
Like it doesn't happen, and then it's over.
Yeah, it's like we've seen market crashes, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's like that. It's like for a few days and more people start to jump into that bandwagon that, hey, this is not working, let's get out. And then it's a run for the exit, right?
And when you're running for the exits is the perfect way to explain it, because then when everyone's running for the exits, it's too late.
Yeah.
What are you... I swear, Sergio, I'm a positive person, and I know you are. I just appreciate. I really appreciate having this conversation with you because your context is so different. It's so unique. What are you then doing to set yourself up? So it sounds like you're still going to play the real estate game a little bit less, maybe.
Yeah. So actually, we have invested in real estate in the Dominican Republic. So I'm looking forward to, even if I come back to Canada, to keep those properties and get the income flowing from those properties. And are you
helping people get properties now? And you are, right?
Yes,
You're helping people who want to buy in the Dominican Republic?
More specifically, investors. Yeah, I have helped investors buy property.
What about somebody who wants to buy a property for their family? You'll help them with that too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
On that, before we forget, we're not going to finish just yet, a little bit longer. What's the contact information? How do people reach you for that?
They can find me on, maybe the best would be just to email me.
Yeah, what's your email?
Sergio, .Manzur, MANZ as in zebra, at gmail.com.
Okay.
That would be the best way. Or then, the only social platform that I use is really Facebook. So they can find me there too. So.
Okay. So you will help people in the Dominican Republic. So you'll hold some real estate a little bit, it sounds like in Canada, a little bit Dominican. So real estate's still going to be in your life.
Yes.
US does your family, if I'm asking two specific questions,
please.
US dollars are still important to you then?
I think diversifying away from the Canadian economy and the Canadian dollar is important, and it's part of why we wanted to, invest in the Dominican Republic, which is a market that is completely dollarized in terms of real estate. Not that they use dollar, right? They have the local currency, but the real estate market is almost 100% dollarized. So we wanted, with everything that happened in Canada the last few years, we really wanted to make sure that, we start diversifying our wealth out of Canada.
So it does two things. You get real estate exposure and you get US dollar exposure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The best of the worst in the US dollar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would like to keep exploring and eventually invest in different markets. As we mentioned briefly, I think Argentina, in many areas and specifically in real estate, I think it's going to be a fantastic
Can you imagine
investment.
We reverse?
It's just a matter of waiting, I say a little bit, but even if you look at the market is starting to pick up.
Is it?
Yes. The best time to buy property there probably would have been mid-2023. So right now, you're start to see the signs. Can
you imagine we reverse roles?
In a few years, it wouldn't surprise me if the economy, because the prices are so low right now, and there's so many good deals to have, that it wouldn't surprise me if the economy picks up, that those property prices are worth double in 3 to 5 years. it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Can you imagine we reverse roles and one day you're running Rockstar Argentina and we're all coming to Sergio going, hey, Sergio, so where are the areas? Where's the Hamilton of this area? What are we doing? How are we looking?
Actually, I would tell you, since January, I've been doing a lot of research.
Have you?
Even in Argentina, I never invested in real estate, right? That's something that happened here in Canada. So, but now I'm checking that market. I'm trying to awesome. Find the right people eventually to jump into. So yeah,
maybe we're going to have one of
homework.
There's going to be a Your Life, Your Terms event in Buenos Aires at some point. That would be amazing. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would.
That would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Introducing all of us to the country, Sergio Manzur. And then, so U.S. dollar exposure. Do you like the Bitcoin thing? Is that meaningful to you or not so much?
Actually, yes. We have some investment, that we did a few years ago just to set aside something. But I wish I had, put more money on that.
Sure. I think all of us.
Yeah, the last few years we stay probably more on real estate than what we should have. So I'm planning to change that moving forward. But that means that I still have to get some equity out of my properties to actually rebalance my overall portfolio, right? So I still need to work on that. So we bought some Bitcoin. We have something, but more of as a store of value. And we haven't really put much focus on that. But I know it's there. I know we have to, become more serious and start putting putting more money on that for sure.
And anything else that comes to mind that you're focused on? Or no, that's it?
No, that's it. I would say.
Okay.
I mean, I want to continue investing in real estate. Find the right markets, get the right, the right returns on our money through real estate. And yeah.
Have you been? What have you learned about yourself through this journey of Argentina to Canada to Dominican? Because I see a resilient person in front of me. Like I see somebody who I have great respect for because of what you've done and been able to accomplish. You're obviously a very resilient guy, and your family's obviously very resilient. To be able to go through everything that you've gone through, you guys are tough people. So
okay.
full respect. What have you learned about yourselves?
I think that's really the only way to learn in life is that throwing yourself on different situations, different scenarios, different environments. That's the way to go, right? It's really knowing that you have to take that step, make those decisions, and jump into something where you can have a plan and that plan is going to get you started. But once you jump, things are going to be different. And you have to learn, you have to make decisions. As long as you know that that's what it takes and you feel comfortable with being uncomfortable, I really that's the way to go. Because if you know in advance that it's going to be difficult, it's going to be uncomfortable, then you're not going to be surprised by that. You know that that's what's expected, and you have to trust that as you move forward, you're going to be able to look back and really put all the dots together, right? But that's not going to happen just planning. It's only going to happen when you actually take action, right? So I'm a firm believer of, throwing ourselves into different environments because that's really the only way that you're going to grow fast, right? If you're not willing to change, if you're not willing to take those risks, of course, taking risks, you have to plan, you have to try to take calculated risk, but you have to take action and you have to take those risks, right? If not, you're going to be, as we grow older, I think we get all more conservative and more stuck in.
You have more to lose. You have more to lose, right? Yeah.
And sometimes the worst thing that can happen is that you are comfortable, right?
Oh.
You are comfortable. You are doing okay. This works. Why change? Maybe you don't verbalize it in that way, and you're not pondering, should I change? No, maybe I'm not gonna change because I'm comfortable. So you don't think in those terms, because if you think in those terms, you may think there is a problem here. I need to do it, right? So it's more like unconsciously, that's what we do, and that will guarantee that not much is gonna change, right?
Blow it all up regularly. Blow it all up regularly.
Yeah. So.
Sergio, thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure to watch you over these last many years doing what you're doing. And you don't have to share all this stuff with people and with Canadians. I think the perspective that you offer really helps Canadians understand what's going on. So they can take action for themselves in their own lives. So I really want to thank you for that, because you don't have to share all this stuff. So it's really meaningful.
No, but it's always great, being here and talking to you. I always enjoy these conversations a lot, Tom. So no, that's really awesome.
So anyone who wants to reach out to Sergio, it sounds like it's your Gmail account, Sergio, Sergio.Manzur, Manzur @gmail.com.
Yep.
And the international man of mystery will be on the other side of that email. So Sergio, thank you for this one.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Terms show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.